It is nice to be back with you once again. So lovely to have your company today. We have bright weather, sunlight, blue skies, and lots of other nice things happening as well. Everything around is looking rather nice. We have 8 Celsius today here in England, for those wondering what the temperature is. We are back together again. English Addict is with you once more, coming to you live from the birthplace of the English language. We all know where it is. You do, I do, we all do. Of course, it is England. There is a lot going on around here today. I don't know why. There are lots of strange sounds, lots of powerful aircraft flying over the house. All morning, lots of fighter jets have been flying over the house. So if you hear some strange sounds, if they sound, or if the sounds appear to be thunder, I can assure you it is not. Aeroplanes are flying by, and of course my new little friend as well, my lovely little pheasant. At the moment, he's actually outside my studio window. You might hear him screeching now and again. Anyway, my name is Mr. Duncan. I talk about the English language. You might say that I am an English addict. I love English very much. You may have noticed over the past 18 years, I like to talk a lot about the English language. So that is me. That is what I do. And I hope you are having a good Wednesday. This is the final, the last English Addict in February. So the next time I'm with you live, it will be March. Oh my goodness, I don't know why. 2025 seems to be flying by. It is going by very fast, and I don't know why. I really don't. So we have sunshine today. Everything looking rather nice. If you were watching on Sunday, you will remember that we were talking about something that happened to Mr. Steve. Something rather unpleasant. He had a near-death experience when a large tree fell and almost squashed Mr. Steve flat. And I thought I would go and have a look at the tree that fell, just to see for myself how bad it was. And I have to say I was rather surprised at what I found. Take a look at this. So this is the tree that fell. Huge tree. A very large tree that fell. And this is the tree that fell just as Mr. Steve was passing by. And as you can see, had Steve been walking a few seconds earlier, he would have been squashed flat. And there I am having a close look. And you can see just how large that tree is. So imagine that crashing down upon your head. I don't think it would end very well. We will see a little bit more of this on Sunday when Mr. Steve is actually with us in the studio. So just to show how severe it could have been, something severe, something bad, something serious that happens, we can describe it as severe. So I would say that Mr. Steve escaped a very horrible ending. That's all I can say. It was very windy. We've had some incredibly windy weather over the past few months. Just before Christmas last year, and then after Christmas, and then just as the new year started, we've had lots of wind. I've never seen so many trees destroyed in this area ever since moving here. So lots of trees, unfortunately, have been destroyed by the severe weather we've been having over the past few weeks. And as you can see, or as you did see a few moments ago, that particular tree is the one that fell the other day when Mr. Steve was having his walk. So that is what was responsible for Mr. Steve's rather unfortunate experience on Sunday. Anyway, he is okay. He will be with us on Sunday, and of course it will be March. Can I just be honest with you? This month has gone by very quickly. I don't know why. I know what you're going to say, Mr. Duncan. February is a short month, but it seems really short, to be honest with you. Can I say hello to the live chat? I wonder who was first here today? Oh, very interesting. The champion is back at the top, everyone. Vitas. Congratulations, Vitas. You are first on today's live chat. And then we have Beatrice, second place. And then we have, who else is here? Oh, of course. By the way, thank you very much for your lovely email and also the link to the video that you sent earlier. Of course, I am saying hello right now to Luis Mendez is here today. Hello, Luis. Thank you very much for the lovely video link that you sent me with some beautiful floral images of Amsterdam. I've never been to Amsterdam during the height of the floral displays when all the flowers come out. I've never been during that period. I have been to Amsterdam, but I've never seen for myself the beautiful flowers. It is a place that is rather nice to go to. Certain times of the year you can see all the flowers, all the tulips. Very famous for its tulips. Amsterdam is very famous for it. Hello to Palmyra. Hello to Wrestle Attack. Wrestle. I remember growing up, my grandparents used to be crazy about wrestling. They used to show it on television during a Saturday afternoon, and my grandparents absolutely loved watching the wrestling. So this was British wrestling, not like the American wrestling, which is very much a rather theatrical thing. A lot of people say that wrestling is fake. I'm not saying anything because I don't want to offend all of those wrestling fans out there, but my grandparents used to love watching the wrestling. Basically, a couple of rather overweight men in their underpants wrestling each other on television. And people would become quite involved. They would have their favourite wrestler. And there would always be one bad guy. And every time the bad guy stepped in to the wrestling ring, everyone would go crazy. They would show just how much they hated that particular wrestler. So hello to India. Hello India. Wrestle Attack is watching in India. Also, we have Giovanni. Hello everyone. How are things? Hi Mr. Duncan. I followed your last stream on Sunday and I heard the story about Mr. Steve. Giovanni, you were ill on Sunday. I hope you are feeling much better now. Nguyen Kang is here as well, watching in Vietnam. I know I have a lot of people watching in Vietnam. Many, many people. Wrestle Attack says, yes, I love watching the wrestling. Since 2010, I've been watching it. I don't watch it. I know in the United States, wrestling, two men normally holding and trying to throw each other to the ground. Quite often they will become intertwined with each other as they try to get the other person on the ground. I think the idea with wrestling, I think you are supposed to pin the other person down on the ground for more than 10 seconds. I think I'm right there. I'm sure Wrestle Attack will tell me if I'm wrong. Hello also to... Oh, hello Turkey. Hi Turkey. It's nice to see you here. Or should I say Turkey? We have Black Eagle watching today. I don't know what's happening to my voice, by the way. My voice is behaving very strangely today. We have an interesting story today. The story of stories. Do you like stories? Do you like reading stories? Some people enjoy reading certain types of story. I suppose we could also say reading books. So a book can have a story, it can have information, it can give you some knowledge, some information that you need perhaps for your job. I know perhaps in the past more people used books. I know nowadays, because we have the internet and now, of course, artificial intelligence, people are now going to the internet more and more for their information. However, there are many good reasons why having a book is a good idea, I suppose, because when you think about it, you can't rewrite a book. So if you have an information book, something giving you information, that book cannot be changed. So when you read the book, it will give you certain information in a particular way. However, if you go on the internet, you might find there are many, many versions of that particular information. Some of it might be correct, some of it might be incorrect, false, fake. So one of the reasons why I always feel reassured when I look at a book. And of course, I suppose you might say, but Mr. Duncan, things do change. So maybe if you buy a book with lots of information in the actual book itself, you might find over time that information will change. Maybe it will be updated. Maybe you have a scientific book with lots of information in the actual book. But perhaps some of those things have changed over time. So yes, there is a good reason for not having old books to read. And there is also a good reason for maybe looking for information on the internet. I suppose it depends where you go for your information. Where do you get your information from? So we are talking about stories. We are talking about books. And we will be looking at the different types of stories as well. Yes, Mr. Duncan, do you know, don't say it too loud, it is hard to believe, but I have got that horrible virus. The horrible, disgusting one. I wonder which one you mean. Because at the moment there are lots of horrible viruses going around the world. Anyway, Giovanni, I hope you are feeling better. I'm just wondering now which virus it is. Is it the dreaded coronavirus, perhaps? If you do have that, I hope you are feeling well very, very soon. Get well soon, please. I don't like to think of my lovely YouTube viewers being unwell, I have to say. Can I also say hello to Claudia? Claudia is not feeling very well as well. Can you believe it? What is happening to you all? Can everyone please stop becoming ill? So Claudia at the moment is on holiday, but sadly she's fallen ill, unfortunately. So please, Claudia, get well soon as well. Apparently, Giovanni says, oh no, Mr. Duncan, it is the winter bug, the one that you mentioned the other day. Oh, norovirus. Yes, we have it here in the UK. A lot of people at the moment are falling sick. They are becoming ill because of norovirus. It is a horrible type of virus, and if you get it, well, let's just say you will be spending a lot of time on the toilet. That's all I can say. So I hope you get well soon, Giovanni. Please, please get well soon. Who else is here today? Christina. Hello, Christina. I will be mentioning you a little bit later on. I will be talking about you later on. Oh, what is that all about, Mr. Duncan? I wonder. I did mention the pheasant at the start of today's live stream because I have a new friend. Yes, it is an animal, but it is a lovely animal. It is a very elegant animal, a rather friendly animal. If you haven't seen it, I will show it to you right now. And there it was, my newest friend. In fact, he's outside in the garden right now, wandering around. My lovely little pheasant. This morning, by the way, I was up very early, not because I wanted to get up early, but because the pheasant was actually calling outside the house. So I got out of bed, I went downstairs, and the pheasant was in the garden, and it came over the fence, it jumped down the wall that is in my garden and came running over because it knew that it was breakfast time. So I threw some food out for the pheasant, and this now has become a regular thing. It's happening every day. So yesterday I actually fed the pheasant 3 times. In the morning, in the afternoon, and then later on in the afternoon it came back again. So I have a feeling that I may have started a new routine with this particular pheasant. It is a beautiful bird. It is not a peacock, but I can understand why some people might confuse that particular bird with a peacock, because the feathers on the male are normally very long. But of course, a peacock is much larger, and the tail opens out into a beautiful display of all sorts of patterns and colours. But yes, pheasants, there are many around here, but this particular pheasant has become very friendly, which is unusual because normally they are not friendly. They are shy birds for very good reasons. By the way, if you want to give me a like and if you want to subscribe to my YouTube channel, because on my YouTube channel there are lots of video lessons. There are also lots of live streams that have been recorded. So if you miss my live streams, don't worry, you can watch them again, including this one as well. So if you want to give my live stream a lovely like, and if you want to subscribe as well, then you will never miss anything that I do ever again. Thank you very much. I do appreciate it. I really do. And of course you can catch me twice a week, Sunday and Wednesday, 2 p.m. UK time. Thank you very much for joining me. I will be talking about an interesting subject today. Stories, books, different types of things that can be read. You read a book. You might read a certain type of book. Perhaps you will refer to some sort of book with information, a science book, a history book. Maybe you are learning a new skill. Perhaps there is a book that can help you learn that new skill. And of course, I suppose we should also mention textbooks as well. If you are learning a new subject, quite often you will have a textbook. There are many great textbooks around for you to study from and also refer to as well. Very nice, in fact. Can I say hello to who else is here? I don't want to miss anyone out. If I forget anyone, I always become very upset. Can I say hello to Fan Tan, who says thank you for your dedication. You are welcome. Thank you very much. This year, it is my 19th year doing this on YouTube. Why, I hear you ask? Why, Mr. Duncan, do you do it? Because I like it, because I love doing it. And I hope I can continue doing it for a very long time to come. So today we are looking at stories. Stories you might read in a book. Maybe you will hear a story being told. Maybe a person will tell you an interesting story about something that happened to them. For example, on Sunday, Mr. Steve was telling us all about his moment of drama when something terrible happened. So there are many ways of expressing story. We will be looking at that in a couple of moments from now.
I'm a big boy now.
English Addict is with you today. I hope you are having a good one. It is myself, Mr. Duncan. I am still with you, and we have a subject to talk about today. Have you ever heard of the phrase well read? A person who is well read, we often describe that person as someone knowledgeable, maybe a person who has read lots and lots of books, maybe information books, maybe encyclopedias, maybe they are a person who likes to absorb lots of information. We might often describe that person as well read. Talking of which, we are looking at the subject of stories today. A good story. We are looking at stories, we are looking at types of stories, and of course I will be showing you some of the books that I like to read and refer to. So I will be showing you some books from my own collection a little bit later on as well. Can I say hello to Silver? Hello Silver, don't worry, you haven't missed today's live stream. It is still going on, so do not panic, do not worry. We are looking at good stories, of course. A good story isn't necessarily a happy story. There are lots of different types of stories that exist. Some of them don't have to be happy stories. They might be unhappy stories. They might be sad stories. So a good story we often refer to as a story that is entertaining or interesting, perhaps. A story is a recounted moment or an imagined situation, either written or told. A record of an event might be recalled as a story. So the word story does cover quite a lot of ways of expressing a certain thing, a certain situation. To recount something. If you recount something, it means you think back, you recall something. So a story can be written and it can be spoken as well. Maybe an experience you had recently or many years ago. You might recount that story. You might talk about a certain moment of time from your past, and then you will tell that as a story. So quite often, something that is a moment of time, something that has occurred, or maybe even an experience that you've had in the past, can be described as a story. A record of an event might be recalled as a story. To recall, to recount an experience from your past. A story is written or is told. You can write down a story. You can tell a story. Quite often, you can do both. So maybe something that has been written can also be read. You can read out a story. You write a story, you tell a story, you recount a story. A certain experience will be recounted in the form of a story. So we are often talking about a certain thing, a certain moment of time, and quite often we will try to express that story in an interesting, clear, vivid way. In fact, we often talk about people who are very good at telling stories. Some people are very good, naturally good at telling stories, whilst other people are not. So you can write a story, tell a story, or recount a story from the past. There are different types of story. You can have a novel. You can have a tale. You can have a saga. You can also express a story through an allegory. These all have certain themes or a particular writing style. They all have a certain theme, a certain construction, the way they are put together, the way they are written, and of course the things they contain as well. That is the reason why stories are always so different from each other, because of the way in which they are written. When we look at a novel is a created story featuring complex situations and is often lengthy. It is a long story. So quite often a novel is a long story containing lots of different situations taking place, normally also featuring lots of different characters. A long fictitious story involving many situations and characters is often described as a novel. A long story featuring many characters. Famous novels include, well, I'm sure you know some of these, Don Quixote, going way back to the 17th century, that was written, To Kill a Mockingbird, a very famous story, also made into a wonderful movie as well. Jane Eyre, especially for the ladies. I know I don't want to say that, but I suppose I will. In fact, I have. Jane Eyre, romantic stories. Jane Eyre is a classic love story. And then, of course, in schools, quite often, certain stories or novels are talked about, they are read, and then they are discussed. And I suppose a very good example of that would be The Great Gatsby, F. Scott Fitzgerald's famous story about, I suppose it is set in a certain period of time where lots of things were happening, lots of things were changing. And it is a story that is often taught in American schools. It was, of course, turned into a very long movie, which is why it is classed as a novel, because it is one of those long stories. The Great Gatsby. Have you ever read it? Then we have a tale. A tale is a fantasy story with imagined events, normally involving strange creatures and fantastic events. Normally things that are slightly odd, strange, bizarre, maybe a certain situation involving a person who may or may not be in danger. So I'm sure we can think of many tales. A fairy tale, a story often told to children. So a fairy tale is a type of story aimed at young people. Quite often, fairy tales will have some sort of message contained within them. Trust, being brave or heroic, fairy tales. The Beautiful Princess, and other things like that. A tale. We often talk of tales of old, fictional stories from the past that are not true. Something fictional is untrue. It has been said or written, but it is not based on anything that actually happened. It is fictional. Fiction is created, made up. A tale can also be a fantasy story. I'm sure you can think of many fantasy stories that have been written, especially if you are a big fan of certain types of story. Snow White is a very good example of a tale, maybe even a fairy tale. Jack and the Beanstalk is another one. I remember reading that at school. In my early days at primary school, we would often read stories with some sort of dramatic plot. Jack and the Beanstalk. And then, of course, I suppose you could describe Robin Hood and his merry men. There are people who believe that Robin Hood was a real person. He is what we call a legend, the legend of Robin Hood. Then we have a fable. Now, I didn't mention this earlier, but I'm going to mention it. Fable. When we talk about fables, we are talking about a short story with a moral message contained within it. A story used to teach a life lesson or to give moral guidance can be described as a fable. Quite often, fairy tales told to children are also fables as well. Moving on. Then we have a saga. Sagas. A saga is a long story, normally involving one hero or many characters over a long period of time. So when you think of a saga, it is a story that stretches over a long period of time, often with different generations of the same family. So you might have a long story involving lots of characters, but also maybe those characters are all related in some way, and the story is all about their lives. Sagas include Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is a saga. It is a long story, and of course you do have a central character, the hero and his journey. Quite often a saga will involve that type of character. Then we have Roots, a very famous story concerning slavery. Then we have Norse saga, the hero's journey. These are the classic sagas. In fact, you might say that that is where the word was originally used when we are talking about Norse heroic stories from the distant past. Then we have an allegory. Allegory is a story created to represent a type of teaching or to convey a moral lesson. When we talk about morals, we are talking about the right way to do something, the correct way to do something, something that has morals, a moral story, a story that is giving advice or maybe teaching a lesson, a life lesson even. Biblical stories. We often think of stories that are written in religious text as quite often taking on some sort of message. They are trying to give meaning. They are often based as an allegory, moral lessons. And of course, the word I mentioned earlier, fable as well. Fable. As a saga, yes, you are right. Star Wars is a saga. It is a long-running story which takes place over a long period of time. So yes, you are right. Well done, Christina. You are right with that one. A story might be shortened or cut to allow the reader to absorb its meaning faster. So quite often, if there is a story that is long, a story that has a lot going on in the actual story itself, it might be a little bit long and boring. So it is not unusual for certain stories to be shortened. We often describe those stories as being abridged. If you abridge something, you shorten that thing. You make it easier to understand. A long story might be abridged. The version of that story is short. It is much shorter than it was originally. I think I will show you some of the things that I like looking at. Most of the books that I have nowadays, and many of the books that I look at on a daily basis, tend to be information based. So information books encyclopedias, maybe information about a certain topic or subject. So I will give you an idea of the sorts of things that I have when I'm looking at books or when I'm referring to books. Here we go. Here's one. I often look at this particular book. This is one that is very interesting, all about the night sky. And it gives you lots of information about the stars, the galaxies around us, and of course all the planets that surround us as well. They all go around and around. I don't know if you were out last night. Did anyone see the planets in the sky last night? In the early evening, if you go outside, you can actually see some of the planets very close to each other in the sky. I think at the moment there are around 7 of them, 7 planets, all visible. Although I think for maybe 3 of them you have to have a telescope, which at the moment I don't have. So this is a very interesting book. If you want to refer to maybe where certain stars are situated at certain times. So here is something very interesting. It gives you the positions of the stars at certain times or certain points of the year. So you can go outside into the garden, you can look up, and you know exactly what you are looking at and whereabouts those things are. This is a pretty interesting subject, and one that never fails to blow my mind, if I was honest with you. Here's another one. I'm sure you know what this particular book is all about. Zoop. Oh, Mr. Duncan, yes, we know. You like birds very much. I do. I love birds. And this is one of my favourite books that I often refer to because it has lots of information about birds, British birds. So these are all the birds that you will find around Britain. And all of my favourite birds are in here. I wonder if the pheasant is in here. I haven't planned this, so I'm going to see if I can find the pheasant. I bet I can't now. Let's see. Let's go to the back. So if you are trying to find something in a book, quite often you will look at the back of the book in the index. So I will look at the index and I will try to find pheasant. Oh, page 55 apparently. Page 55 is the pheasant. Let's have a look, shall we? Oh yes, look at that. There it is. Lovely pheasant. Da-da-da. Pheasant. There is the male, and the one at the back, that is the female. So the female pheasant and the male pheasant are very different from each other. They look very different in appearance. And yes, you do find them quite often in this area. So around this area there are lots and lots of pheasants. A good book. I love this book very much. It is always a book that I love reading. Even though I know some of the information in here, I still love reading it. I love the pictures and I love all the information. And of course, many of the birds in this book I've never seen in real life. So it does give you a chance to find out about the birds that you might not see normally. As you know, I love travelling, and can I say a big thank you to Christina, who sent this lovely book all about the place in which she lives. Isn't that great? Genoa in Italy. And I have to say, once again, a very interesting book with lots of information and beautiful colour photographs as well. As you know, I love travelling, and that book is one that I have looked at many, many times. One of the problems with some books is if you look at them too often, they start to fall to pieces. I do have some books that I've read so many times, all of the pages have started to fall out, which isn't very good when you think about it. I don't know why, but this morning I accidentally picked up this morning. So I was collecting some books, but I also picked up this by accident. So this is not a book. This is actually a DVD of Mind Your Language, which is a TV show all about a teacher who is teaching a group of foreign students, teaching them how to speak English. It is a very funny TV show, but it is not a book. I don't know why I picked this up. Anyway, it gives me a chance to actually show it to you, which is always good. Continuing what we were talking about, some stories in the past are now being censored. This has become quite a hot topic in the past. Some stories written in the past are now being censored or edited so as not to offend certain groups of people in the present. Now, so there are certain stories, certain books, and they are addressing particular topics. Some of those topics might be sensitive issues. They might have things occurring in those books or in those stories that might upset certain people. And of course, there might be stories that have been made up. They are fiction that may or may not be true. Something that has been made up, something that has been created. So some stories now, or maybe what is happening at the moment here in the UK, many stories are actually now having warnings put on the front of the book. So before you read the book, there is a warning telling you that certain things in this book may be upsetting or they might offend you. Now, I'm not sure how I feel about that, because a book that was written maybe 50 years ago or 100 years ago or even 150 years ago, the things happening in that book, of course, will not relate to the present day. But they are still interesting to read, even though many of the things in the book have now passed by. Maybe things we don't think anymore, or things we don't believe in, or maybe attitudes from the past. However, I think it is still worthwhile, it is still valuable to keep those things as they were, because it gives you a reference to the past. It gives you a very clear understanding of what people thought, how they behaved in the past. So I do think that censoring stories, editing famous books, or in some cases just warning people about them, might not be a good idea. Many school students will read certain stories as part of their English literature class curriculum. It is true. I remember when I was at school. When I was at school, we did read a couple of well-known stories. We read Lord of the Flies at school. We did that as part of one of our English literature exams. So we had to read the book Then we had to write an essay about the book itself and what we learnt from the book. So a very good example of a story that also is an allegory. It is giving a sort of message. Not a very nice story, by the way. Lord of the Flies. Of course, there are many authors, many people who wrote or write books who are often referred to in teaching. For example, Dickens, Charles Dickens, is often referenced or referred to when talking about literature, stories. He was, of course, a great storyteller. And then, of course, we have the Bronte sisters with all of their, I would say, their romantic stories. Finding the right man, losing your love, finding yourself, wandering alone. Then, of course, we have Mark Twain. Quite often he is studied in the USA, in American schools. Quite often they will talk a lot about Mark Twain. Of course, his famous characters, Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn. Now, we actually read that story. We read Huckleberry Finn at school for one of our literature exams. A very interesting story. One of those stories that may or may not be a little bit out of date, because some of the language in that story is not, well, it's not politically correct nowadays, let's just say. Samuel Clemens, by the way, was his real name. It's one of those wonderful trivia questions that a lot of people ask. Who was Samuel Clemens better known as? And now you can say Mark Twain. That's who. Do you like to read? I have to say, I do like reading, although, and I'm being honest, although a lot of the reading that I do nowadays is online. I do often read things on the internet. Stories, maybe biographies about a famous person, maybe some historical information. Quite often I will read it online. One of my pieces of advice that I would give, a piece of advice for you now, if you are looking for information about something on the internet, I always suggest that you look in more than one place. So maybe you can go to one website or one place that has the information, and then maybe look somewhere else for the same information. And then if there is a difference, at least it gives you a chance to make up your own mind. It might confuse you, but I think it is a very good way of making sure that the thing you are learning or the thing you are reading has some facts contained within it. So there are many different types of story. You can have fiction. Fiction is made up. It is created. It doesn't really exist. Fiction. Then we have factual. Factual relates to things that are real or true, maybe something that is documenting a past event. Something happened in the past. It is factual. And then, of course, we have biography. When we talk about biographies, we are talking about the story of a person's life. I am very interested in biographies. I do like reading about other people's lives, especially people who have a certain amount of success in their lives. It is always interesting to find out what happened in their past. How did they go from that point to that point? How did they go from perhaps having a very difficult childhood to having success? That journey is quite often an interesting one, and that is what normally a biography will explain a person's life story. Then of course we have history. A lot of people like looking at history, recent history. War is always a very popular topic, I've noticed. If you ever put the television on and you start flicking around the channels on your TV, you will find there are many documentaries about the war, First World War and Second World War, and all the people involved in those particular points of time. Then of course we have science. Oh yes, I like science very much. When I was a kid, I used to always read science books. I always had a science book in front of me. Quite often biology. I was fascinated by biology. Biology. How all of this works and all of the parts that go together to make it work. So there are many different types of story, many different types of book, I suppose, when you think about it. The most basic, of course, factual and fiction. Things that are not true, things that have been created, and things that are true, or they are based in reality. I will be going in a moment. I've just realised, I did not realise that it's 7 minutes past 3 o'clock, nearly. Goodness me. Today's lesson has gone by very quickly. I hope you have enjoyed today's live stream. Whatever you are doing this afternoon, perhaps you will be reading a book. Maybe you are reading a book right now. Maybe there is something you are studying in a book to help you learn. Thank you very much for your company. Guess what? We are back on Sunday from 2 p.m. UK time. Mr. Steve, of course, will be here. No doubt he will be talking all about his rather unpleasant experience last week. And, of course, I hope you will be here as well on Sunday, because we will all be together. The English addicts will all be joining together again. So I hope you can join me on Sunday. This is Mr. Duncan in the birthplace of the English language, saying thank you for watching. See you later. Take care of yourselves. And of course, until the next time we meet here, whatever you are doing, have fun. Enjoy yourself. Perhaps you are going to sit down and read a book. Enjoy it, whatever it is you are doing. And of course, you know what's coming next. Yes, you do. See you on Sunday. Ta-ta for now.